Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're kind of like stepping back in time a little bit, going back to 1989.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back to the heart of Hollywood and, where a young starlet's life was cut way too short.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's a sad story. It's Rebecca Schaeffer, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with her story.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
But, just imagine like you're this rising actress and you're living the dream in L.A.,
Right.
you've got this hit sitcom, the fan mail is just pouring in.
Yeah,
The future just seems so bright.
it does.
But then, amidst all this adoration, there's this like sinister shadow lurking.
Gosh.
This stalker who is fixated on you and just blurring those lines between fantasy and reality.
Right.
And that's, the story of Rebecca Schaeffer.
Wow.
A talented actress whose life was just tragically taken by an obsessed fan, Robert John Bardo.
I've heard that name.
Yeah. And, this case, it just sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond and really raised some crucial questions about fame and security and the dark side of fandom.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series.
I'm excited.
Glad to have you here. And, today with me, I have an expert in criminal psychology and the impact of crime on society.
Yes, that's me.
And I'm really eager to kind of like dissect this case with you
Okay, let's do it.
and explore its lasting implications.
Sounds good.
So, let's just start by kind of like setting the scene, painting a picture of Rebecca's world.
Okay.
She wasn't just like a pretty face on a sitcom.
Right.
She was really talented
Yeah, she was.
and had a bright future ahead of her.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about her early life and her rise to fame?
Well, Rebecca, she was actually making a name for herself in modeling before she transitioned over to acting.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, she landed the role of Patty Russell on My Sister Sam when she was only 18. That's so young.
I know. And that sitcom was a huge success.
Oh, yeah.
It really like propelled her into the spotlight.
Wow. It's hard to imagine now, right?
I know.
Like, no social media,
Yeah.
no instant global connection like we have today.
Crazy.
Fame was different back then.
For sure.
Like this mystique.
Yeah, almost like a mystery.
Which kind of makes me wonder if that maybe fueled these, unhealthy obsessions.
Yeah, I think you're right because back then there wasn't that like direct link
Right.
between celebrities and fans.
Yeah.
It was almost like this void that
Mhm.
got filled with, fantasies and projections.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about Robert John Bardo,
Okay.
this obsessed
Yes.
man.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about him and what led him down this dark path?
Well, Bardo, he was a troubled young man. He
Yeah.
had a history of, mental health issues.
Okay.
And he had this tendency to fixate on female celebrities.
Right.
And he'd actually targeted Tiffany before this.
The singer, yes, and sent her disturbing letters.
Wow.
And his behavior showed, classic signs of erotomania.
Erotomania, what is that?
It's like a delusional disorder
Okay.
where someone believes that another person, often like a celebrity, is in love with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he wasn't just a fan. He genuinely believed he had a connection with Rebecca.
Exactly. He really thought they had this special bond.
And when that perceived connection was threatened in his mind,
Mm-hmm.
his obsession took a very dark turn.
Yeah, it did.
So what was it that triggered that shift?
So there was this scene in a movie that Rebecca starred in, and Bardo just saw it as like a betrayal of their imagined relationship.
Oh, wow.
And it just fueled his rage and it pushed him towards violence.
Oh, gosh.
And, that's something we see a lot with stalkers. It's like
Right.
this distorted perception of reality
Right.
coupled with, they can't handle rejection.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about the events leading up to July 1989. What steps did Bardo take to turn his obsession into this deadly plan?
So this is where things get really chilling.
Okay.
Bardo, he was consumed by this warped sense of betrayal, right?
Right.
He actually hired a private investigator
Oh,
to get Rebecca's address.
wow. So this is before the internet.
Long before the internet.
But he was determined to find her.
Oh, yeah. He traveled from Arizona all the way to Los Angeles,
Wow.
armed with a gun
Oh, my gosh.
and completely driven by this delusion.
Yeah, it's just chilling to think about.
It is.
That someone is out there planning to harm you based on some fantasy
Yeah.
that you have no control over.
It's scary.
And the premeditation in this case is truly disturbing.
Yeah, it really is.
It shows just how obsessed he was.
Right.
This wasn't like a sudden impulse.
No.
It was planned
Yes.
and fueled by months of rage.
Yeah, months of it.
And sadly, on July 18, 1989, that plan was put into action.
Oh, no.
Bardo went to Rebecca's apartment, rang the doorbell,
Wow.
and when she answered, he shot her at point-blank range, ending her life instantly.
That's awful.
It was brutal, senseless.
No, no.
It shocked Hollywood
Right.
and left this gaping hole in the lives of everyone who knew and loved her.
Yeah, it's just a reminder that fame can cast a long, dark shadow. It's so sad,
It really is. And it wasn't just Rebecca's life that was shattered.
Right.
Her family, her friends, her colleagues, everyone was left dealing with this unimaginable grief,
Of course.
losing her in such a senseless way.
It's awful. And, in a lot of ways, Rebecca's murder was like a wake-up call. For Hollywood, they had to confront their own vulnerabilities and really acknowledge the dangers that celebrities face.
It's like a crack in the facade of Hollywood glamour,
Yeah.
revealing this dark reality underneath.
Exactly. And as tragic as it was,
Yeah.
this case became a catalyst for change. It started this national conversation about stalking,
Yeah.
which was often misunderstood back then.
Right. And we have to remember, this was before any widespread anti-stalking laws.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe now.
I know.
But back then, there were very few legal protections for victims.
It's a scary thought.
It really is. So
Yeah.
can you walk us through how Rebecca's case led to these legal changes?
Well, it was a long and hard battle.
I can imagine.
But Rebecca's family and friends
Yeah.
and advocates, they pushed tirelessly for reform.
Wow.
They wanted to make sure that her death wasn't in vain
Of course.
and that something good could come out of this.
Good for them.
It must have been so difficult for them
You can't even imagine.
to channel that grief into action.
Yeah,
But their efforts undoubtedly saved lives.
I bet.
Their resilience was incredible.
Mm.
And because of them,
Okay.
California passed the first anti-stalking law
Wow.
in the U.S. in 1990.
That's huge.
It was a turning point
Yeah.
in how stalking was perceived and prosecuted.
Okay.
This law, which was later adopted by other states,
Uh-huh.
recognized stalking as a distinct crime and established penalties for those who harass and intimidate others.
So it shifted the focus from individual incidents
Yeah,
to this pattern of behavior,
right.
recognizing the psychological impact
Exactly.
on the victim.
And it gave law enforcement tools to
Ah.
intervene earlier
Yeah.
and maybe even prevent tragedies.
That's so important. So did Rebecca's case also change things within the industry,
Oh, yeah.
like in Hollywood?
Security measures were heightened
Okay.
after her murder.
Makes sense.
Studios, production companies, agencies,
Yeah.
they realized they had to take their stars' safety more seriously.
Right. It's hard to imagine a time when fan mail wasn't screened
Right.
or background checks weren't standard.
I know.
It really shows how much this case shook Hollywood.
Yeah.
Security protocols, personal security.
Yeah. A greater awareness of potential threats.
Right.
It all became the norm.
It's just a reminder that even in the glamour of Hollywood,
Right.
darkness can lurk,
Yeah.
and fame has a price.
It does, and it raises a question that's still relevant today,
Yuck.
especially with social media,
Right.
where the lines between celebrities and fans are blurred.
For sure.
How do we balance that desire for connection
Yeah.
with safety and privacy?
It's a complex issue for sure,
Yeah.
and one that we'll explore more as we continue looking at Rebecca Schaeffer's legacy
Okay.
and the impact her case had on society. It's just unsettling how one tragedy can expose how fragile life really is.
Yeah, especially in a world that kind of, celebrates fame and idolizes those in the spotlight.
Right, and it forces us to confront the fact that anyone can be a victim
I know.
of obsession and violence.
Doesn't matter who you are
And in Rebecca's case, it shows how easily these fixations can escalate.
if they're not addressed. Yeah.
We've talked about legal reforms and increased security,
Right.
but what about the psychology of it all?
Yeah.
How has this case helped us understand stalking behavior?
Well, I think it's been huge for raising awareness about the warning signs and the damage that stalking can do. It made professionals and the public realize this isn't just unwanted attention.
Yeah.
It's harassment with serious long-term consequences.
Right. It can really affect the victim's mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely.
And it seems like we view stalking differently now.
Definitely.
It's a serious crime that needs intervention.
Yeah, and support for the victims.
Right, exactly. So we now understand that stalkers often have these patterns
Yes.
of controlling behavior.
A manipulation.
A need for power.
They have a distorted view of reality.
And Rebecca's case is a tragic example of how dangerous that can be.
It really is.
And now with social media, it feels like stalking and harassment have just exploded.
It's a whole new world out there.
It really is like a whole new frontier for this behavior.
Yeah, the internet gives stalkers so much access, information, a platform to harass.
Nonstop. And it's tough because social media can be a tool for stalkers.
Right.
But it can also be used to raise awareness and connect victims.
You're right. It's a double-edged sword.
It is. There's this whole online community now dedicated to sharing resources and stories.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's helping victims speak out and find support.
It's great that they can connect like that.
Yeah, it shows how resilient people can be, finding ways to help each other in such dark times.
It's inspiring.
It is. And it highlights how important education and advocacy still are.
For sure.
We need to keep talking about this, debunking myths about stalking.
Absolutely.
And make sure victims know they're not alone.
That they have help.
Exactly. So what can someone do if they think they're being stalked?
Okay, well, first, trust your gut.
Okay.
If someone is making you feel uneasy, don't ignore it.
Right.
Take it seriously. Write everything down. Save messages. Keep a log of every encounter.
Like a record.
Yes, and report anything suspicious to the police.
So basically create a paper trail.
Exactly. It helps build your case, and it helps law enforcement understands the stalker's behavior.
Okay, and don't be afraid to reach out to friends or family.
Of course, or victim advocacy groups.
Right, you don't have to go through this alone.
Never.
It's important to seek help from people who understand.
And remember, it's never the victim's fault.
That's so important to remember.
Stalking is a crime, and the stalker needs to be held accountable.
Absolutely. So as we look back on Rebecca Schaeffer's case, it's clear her legacy is much bigger than her tragic death.
It really is.
It's about awareness, legal changes, and a deeper understanding of stalking.
It's about protecting people.
And it reminds us that even though fame has its risks, everyone deserves to feel safe.
100%.
Thank you so much for being here and helping us understand this important topic.
It is my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive into Rebecca Schaeffer's story has given you some things to think about.
Hopefully.
Remember, if you or someone you know is dealing with stalking or harassment, please reach out for help. There are resources available, and you don't have to go through this alone.
Please reach out.
Thank you for joining us on CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more deep dives into true crime. Until next time.